Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2024 Chevy Equinox, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster automatic battery disconnect switch. Before we get into that though, let's just take a minute, check this out, and talk about what it's going to even do. So GM suggests with this Equinox that whenever you're flat towing it or pulling this vehicle behind your motorhome, that they want the battery to be disconnected. All right, that way it won't cause other potential issues with the electronics on the vehicle. You know, a lot of these have electric assisted brakes, electric assisted steering, and that type of thing. So by having the battery disconnected, you're not going to run into any of those types of potential issues whenever you're pulling this behind your motorhome. What the automatic disconnect switch is going to allow you to do is get the battery disconnected and reconnected simply by the push of a button. And the way it's going to work is really straightforward. If I open this up here, one side of it is going to tie directly into your battery, and the other side is going to go to this stud here, which allows all that battery voltage to get spread throughout the vehicle. So by interrupting that circuit, you know, you're not going to have battery power flowing in here when the switch is pushed down and everything turned off. Where you want to mount that switch is really up to you, but I prefer to put it inside of the vehicle here, and that's exactly where ours is set up today. All it is just this little button, so it's not unsightly, you know, it doesn't take up a lot of room and stuff like that. All right, and so for example, how this will work, right now our power's on. You know, it might be a little hard to see this sunny day, but our dome lights are on. You know, our horn works. I could key the ignition on and power everything up. So that's how you'd have it when you're not flat towing, just driving around like normal. But when you're ready to hook up to your coach, you just push the button in, give it a couple seconds to do its thing, and that completely kills power. You know, we don't have any lights, horn don't work, ignition won't turn on, anything along those lines. And now you're ready to hook everything else up, pull your vehicle down the road. Then once you're done and you're ready to have full power again, push your button again, give it a few seconds to kind of wake up and do its thing, and you'll be in good shape. You know, lights will power up, ignition powers up, horn works, and you have full power, just that easy. So with all that said, is the automatic disconnect switch absolutely necessary? No, it's not. You know, you can unhook your battery manually, but you know, my initial thought, if it were me, I'd go, that's no big deal, I'll do that. I could see that getting old pretty quick, you know, trying to remember to do that, get your tools out, set it up. You're already worried about a bunch of other stuff going on. And I just potentially could see room for error there, you know, forgetting to do it, whatever the case may be. So by having this in here, you set it up one time and you're good to go. You know, you push the button, you ain't got to waste a bunch of time when you're out trying to enjoy yourself, and just one less thing you're not going to have to worry about. So ultimately, you know, a no-brainer for me, at least in my opinion. As far as the installation process goes, it's really not too bad. You know, you mount this up, you hook up your cables to the battery, got a ground wire, and then you run your wiring inside and set that switch up. So you do it one time, good shape from there on out. With that said, if this is something that you don't feel comfortable doing or don't have the time, place, whatever, I definitely understand. You can always use our dealer locator network to help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can set this up for you. But if you're going to give it a go, hang around, we'll go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our install for our battery disconnect switch, going to be working underneath the hood here on the driver's side. And first thing that you want to do is get this solenoid mounted up, and it has to be mounted in this orientation towards vertical. And you want it to be within reach of the battery. You know, your two cables, that's where we're going to have to run these. So what I can see is kind of back here along the firewall. That's where I'm going to put it. Being that it is so tucked up in there though, I'll go ahead, get it mounted with some self-tapping screws and then show you how it turned out. Here's how the solenoid turned out. Like I said, I just tucked it up against the firewall there and used the included self-tapping screws to get it secured. We're gonna have a white wire that's coming off of the solenoid, and that's gonna be a ground. So they come pre-stripped already. You can twist the wire, get it tight, and take a ring terminal and put that on the bare end of it, and crimp it down. And I just routed this over. Here right behind her battery, there's a factory ground post that I'm utilizing for some of my other grounds already for my braking system and such. So I'll just use that. We'll remove the nut with a 10mm. Put our ring terminal over the stud. And we'll just tighten her nut back down. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to our negative battery post with a 10mm socket. Loosen this up, that way we can disconnect this portion. Let's put a little piece of foam or something there to prevent it from making contact. And then we're going to move to our positive battery post, which is this one here. And if you happen to have anything hooked up to it that has fuses in it, go ahead and pull those fuses out. For example, our braking system, this is our fuse holder for it. I just removed it. We will loosen up this nut. And this nut doesn't come all the way off either. So pull that out off to the side. And then I'm going to pull the post off there. We'll switch out for a 13mm and remove this cable portion that goes to this large fuse right here. Go ahead and grab the big wire coming off of the solenoid that's labeled battery cable. We're going to put that onto this post and reinstall this factory nut here. Our factory battery post here, it had this little piece of cable coming off of it. I kind of just rotated it this way, just a little ways. And to keep it in the position that we want, go ahead and tighten this 10mm back down. And then you can take your cable labeled battery post. That's going to get hooked up to that there. And so they give you this bolt. I'm going to put that through. And they give you a star washer. Put that on. Then put the cable through. Another star washer. And a nut. We'll switch out to 13mm here. And tighten this down. Since these posts, you know, are going to have power to them, you don't really want to leave exposed metal, and so they do give you this piece of heat shrink tubing. And so what I'm going to do is slide it over those ends, get it on pretty much all the way here, and we'll come back with our heat gun and seal it up. Once you have that heat shrink all shrunk down, that's how it turned out. And this stuff is pretty thick. What I'll probably do later on is come back with electrical tape and wrap it up real good just to be on the safe side, but that's totally up to you. And what we can do now, we have this wire coming out of the solenoid with the fuse holder in it. Make sure the fuse is not installed, but that's going to kind of turn into this gray wire here. And this is going to have to run inside of our vehicle. And so what I did, there's a factory grommet in the firewall. If you carefully poke a hole through it, that'll allow you to take that wiring and push it through into the driver's side floorboard area. One thing I do want to mention too is it's not a bad idea to check. All right, so you know these cables have the labels on them, right? It's not a bad idea to actually check them and see what side of the actual solenoid they're mounted to, because it's happened to me once or twice. I do a lot of these, so it's kind of rare, but occasionally these stickers can get mixed up and put on the wrong cable, and then you'll run into issues later with everything not working. So double check that just to be on the safe side. Inside of the cab, here's where that wire comes down, and we need to find a spot to mount up our switch. And so I've kind of scoped everything out already. I think we're going to go on the dash somewhere. Along this bottom edge, there will be 3 7mm head screws that look just like this. So I pulled those out, and then what you can do is just grab this. You'll have to give it some force. It'll kind of unsnap itself. And we'll have a connector just to make this easier to work with here. We'll have a little connector that you can undo. So there's a red tab. You just kind of pull up on it like that. There's a better look. You just pull up on that red connector, or that red tab there, and then you can push down on the center there, and that'll release that. And then the hood latch release is also connected down here. So if you take a flathead screwdriver, kind of just push down on the middle there, that'll pop free. And we can have a lot more room to work with the panel. And if you look on that bottom edge, this is where those 3 screws were at that I removed to actually pull this out of position. As far as the placement of our switch goes, looking at what's going on behind the dash, this seems to be kind of the most ideal spot. So I pre-drilled a hole there, and that's what we're working with on the back side. After we make the hole, we might have to come back and kind of knock these gussets or ridges down flush. You know, we cut them off or whatever. But what I like to do is use a step bit. Kind of gives you more control. So usually run it in that way a little bit, flip it over, you know, do the same thing, and then once you think you're close, every now and again, just take the switch and see if it fits in there. You want it to be just large enough to where this will fit in with relative resistance, you know. That'll give us the cleanest install look. So if we're close, I'll just continue to enlarge this a little bit until we're able to get that in. I got our hole made to its final size, and on the back of it, where those ridges were, I just used a little utility knife to kind of cut them, and then a little grinding bit just to file everything down flat. So as far as our switch goes, you can remove the nut that's on the back side of it. This will just push into place. Take the nut, we'll get it started. And with these, you don't have to get crazy tightening them. Usually what I do is just grab a socket by hand. This is a 19 millimeter, 3/4 will also work. And just snug it up like that. You know, don't overdo it. Back inside, if you look at the dash, there's this little pocket here, right? And that's what I was, my thought process was on our switch placement, because there would be enough room. I feel like if I would have placed the switch down just a little bit lower, I probably wouldn't have had to drill a hole to give it clearance, but no big deal. So what I had to do, I just drilled a small hole in the plastic there. That way when we put the panel on, the switch won't be interfering with anything, has a place to set into. And I also took our gray wire coming from the solenoid in the engine compartment and just ran it through that opening. We have this pigtail, the connector, and if you peel back this gray sheathing, that'll expose a red wire and a black wire. The black one, we'll use a butt connector to hook up to the blue one coming out of our connector plug there. And the yellow one will go to the red. So you just strip the insulation back. Give that a twist here. I'll get this all connected. And then grab our panel and plug this into the switch. Back underneath the hood, I hooked up our negative battery terminal again, opposite way that we did that. And then they give you a 7.5 amp fuse for that holder. So I put it in there, and we should be good to test everything out now. To test everything out, right now we have full power to our vehicle like we normally would. You know, our dome lights are on, horn works, all of our lights will work and everything else. So if I hit the button, wait a few seconds, let the car do its thing, we should lose all power. What you do, no horn, no lights, if I try to push ignition on, nothing happens at all. And then if you push it again, we should regain power. I like to wait a few seconds in between doing this just so you're not freaking the car out. So that should be long enough. Push it again, and then give it a second to do its thing. All of our lights are back on, horn's working. I can push our ignition, everything fires up like it should. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster automatic battery disconnect switch on our 2024 Chevrolet Equinox.